Hi, my name is Grayson Jamrock. I'm a student of the Analyzing Financial Performance class at Missouri State University in the semester of fall 2016. Class code is HRA 310 001, and the professor is Dr. Albert Beretta. Today, we are running a simulation for Harvard Business Managementor, pretending that we are the CEO of a doll company under the name of New Heritage. And we're planning out for the next 5 years as CEO of the company, making financial decisions and using CVP analysis and capital budgeting to try and make our company a success for the next half a decade to come. Now, for the purpose of this video, I do need to be honest, I've run the simulation several times, and I know where most of the decisions are going to get me in the end. So what I've done today is started a brand new simulation, working with the budget of $8 million available, which you'll see right there. And I'm just going to explain the decisions that I've made previously as I make them again, using the analysis I've used before. So for the year of 2009, when we take a look at our cash flow, you'll see that the majority of our cash flow is going to be coming from the licensing division. Licensing is in charge of things like making movies and obtaining permits to try advertising things. So it's important to spread our name. Retail winds up being the next highest, which is where we wind up selling things, our stores and divisions. Since New Heritage is a doll company that's all about the experience of shopping, much like Claire's or Build-A-Bear Workshop, that actually makes a lot of sense. Production is the last part that actually makes money because they technically make profit that we do actually sell. When I said profit, I meant to say products. They're making the cold hard items that are earning us the cold hard cash. Looking at the revenue and income, we earn the most revenue based on retail and the least based on licensing. That's something I'd like to change because I think it's important for licensing to make us more money and for us to spread our word and our name a little bit around. We look at operational profit by division, and we make the most money in licensing because they don't actually cost that much and they make nothing but money when they do make their investments. That's something I'd like to keep going. And our total assets are mostly spread between retail and production. Production because they make our toys and products, and retail because of the stores having their own value. Licensing would only have things like permits or patents. I'm not too worried about that right now. Now, the first thing I like to do is go up to the project details and examine the projects I have to pick from this year. Now, with a budget of $8 million, I have to be pretty careful of the lifetime project cost and the 2010 project costs up here. One of the main things I used in my analysis for this project was operating leverage. I prefer to keep it low because New Heritage, while well established, is a company I'd like to keep around long term. Higher risks mean higher profit, but lower risks mean lower profit. And I'd really rather stick with a lower risk factor right now. There are a couple decisions I'm going to make later that are going to be very pricey, but I know they're going to pay off, and I'll explain how I figured that out. Now, the main thing I also looked at when I was considering these projects was preference. What would I pick? What would I buy? That's going to come into play a little bit later. Beyond that, I was mostly looking at my strategies of sticking to the core values of this business, and I was also looking at marketing, how I could sell things, whether or not they seemed cool enough. And I wanted to stay dedicated to the principles that have made New Heritage Doll Company last this long as it has. So the first thing I did take a look at was the toddler doll and accessory line. Now, it says this project involves development of a new line of accessories, carriages, cribs, and carriers for an existing New Heritage toddler doll line. Now, this one is considered a low risk, and its main market is to toddlers. New Heritage's two main markets are to teenagers and to toddlers. At low risk, it seems like it'd be an easy enough decision. However, the net present value is not that high, and the rate of return is only 25%. This would cost me initially $2 million. It might be worth the risk, but with such a limited budget, I'm going to have to put that one on the back burner for now. The Match My Doll clothing line. Now, I'm not going to lie, I know for a fact this one has worked out in the past. It was one of my favorite ones. I am not a big fan of high risk, but this one had some beautiful numbers that I couldn't resist, even with a high payback period. This one is something that I could easily imagine getting into as a child, matching your dolls and your clothes to yourself, and helps you find a form of identity. That's the reason I did invest in this one in the first place. Retail store expansion. Part of New Heritage's policy is that they would like to remain that same small store that they've always been, but they do need to expand in order to be profitable. Now, this one is expansion to the northeast instead of to a foreign country, which is why I think I'm going to go ahead and go with it, despite the high risk. We'll be staying in America and keeping the American values, but we'll still be opening more locations and making our dolls available for more little girls and boys. The facility consolidation is definitely a smart decision, but I think at the moment it's going to cost me too much to make, eating up more than 3/4 of my budget. And this one is something that would cost me money in the beginning and pay off long term because it would allow us to ship things quicker, and it's a much better move if you're actually moving out of the country. for now, I think I'm going to avoid it. And the doll film and DVD. This was absolutely my favorite one to pick. It's one I've loved since the first time I saw it in class. This is about making a movie about dolls living their lives. As a little girl, I loved these movies, so I was kind of initially biased. But these numbers down here are absolutely gorgeous. Payback value is 9.37, which is also the net present value. When your IRR is over 50%, it's worth considering, but this one is almost 250. It's gorgeous. And look at the payback period of 1.43 years. There's literally no reason not to invest in this. Now, this is just going off of initial analysis. I actually do want to plug in the projects and demonstrate the numbers. So here we're going to go to the income statement and balance sheets. And my way of doing this is that I'll pick all the companies that I'm considering, all of my investments, and see first, do I have the budget for it? And second, how am I going to make that budget work? So what I liked was the retail expansion in the Northeast, the new doll film and DVD, and then Match My Doll line. Now, I've only got $1.13 million left in my budget, which will transfer to next year if I don't use it. I don't have any of these other projects I can invest in without giving up one of the three I really like. So now that I've plugged all these in, the numbers down here are going to be changing. So I'm going to look at how my numbers are reflecting for the next year if I go with all three of these products. My net income goes from $13.56, and it's going to go down in the next year, $12.71. That initially seems like a bad thing, but when you look at the next year, it boosts right up to 18.2. And the fact is, we're spending money before we make money. So this actually makes sense to me. Net current assets go straight up right away. Not too much at first, but significantly over the next couple years. First by $3 million, then by $7 million, then by $5 million, then by $4 million. It's an up and down kind of thing. And this will also depend on what sort of projects I invest in for the next couple years. So I can't be too judgmental on that. This is only year one. Current liabilities are something I do take pretty seriously when I look, because current liabilities are immediate debts I owe. Right now we're sitting at $42.8 million. Next year we're going to go up about $2 million, which has me a little bit concerned, and then we go up by $5 million the next year. Now, this is because certain of these things will stop making money, and technically my liabilities don't ever really go away. So this means next year I will have to make more investment decisions, hopefully to balance out the income. My liability in stock and shareholders' equity goes from $1.65 million to $1.73 and then to $1.8. That stays about the same no matter what you do, so I'm not taking that too much into consideration. Now we look at the cash flow statements. Cash flow says my total cash flow right now is $26.06, hypothetically. Accumulating for depreciation, next year will be 25.21, and then it jumps right up to 31. As I said, 2010 is going to be a bit of a slow year. You'll see with the lower numbers. So we will have to make more and better investment decisions next year, hopefully with more revenue and a little bit more freedom of choice. Cash flow goes down by less than $1, but then jumps up by $3. And the cash flow from investments goes from $18 invested. So it's going to be a pretty expensive year next year. I might have less money to work with than I had thought. But on the plus side, our actual ending cash balance goes up by 20 cents, which is good. So I'm going to go to financial analysis. Now this one I'm not going to have too much to compare to because I won't have any historical financials yet, but next year we'll take a better look at it. My debt-free cash flow is 14.12, and next year that does get sliced in half. However, the year after that it's going to double, and that's going to be continuing revenues from the movie and from the Match My Doll clothing line. Discount factor, I wasn't allowed to play with the discounts on the simulation, so I haven't done much with that. And the interest tax shields. Tax is something that concerns me in the far long term, but as this is only going to be a 5-year plan, I haven't been paying too much attention to that right now. Present value does concern me, but as you can see, it stays the same for the next 2 years and drops down by 6 the next year. I think we'll be okay. Now, levered enterprise value means that next year I'll have $309 million approximately, and after 5 years, if I stick with only these investment decisions, I'll only have $240 million. Luckily, I'm not a dum-dum, so we're going to invest in a lot more projects than that. Now, normally I would say that you need to check each of these: production consolidated, retail consolidated, and licensing consolidated, but when I first read the simulation outlay, it said that New Heritage Doll Company focused on growing as a company first and not just by division. So while I would like to develop the licensing and the retail division more than they are, I'm focusing on decisions that are good for the whole company, which is why I look at the company consolidated numbers rather than each of these individually. Now, I'm pretty satisfied with how this project looks, so I'm going to go ahead and make my decision. It's already got the 3 I've selected on here. I'm going to submit them, and we'll see how we're going to do in the next year. You'll see that our net present value actually rose far further than we had projected. It went from $2.48 million to $319.38 million, which is a pretty substantial growth. Now, my revenue I predicted would be a little bit lower than it actually was, so we made more money. My operating income was not as much as I had needed, which tells me that one of the products cost more to make than it should have. And my total net income, the result of these two numbers, was also lower than I had planned. So we look at our project updates. The clothing line outperformed expectations after celebrities' daughters were photographed wearing the items, and that's very good. That tells me this line will continue to be profitable. The retail opening in the Northeast generated more revenue, which is wonderful. The film was released on schedule, the marketing campaign was successful, and DVD sales exceeded those of New Heritage's previous films. This is all very good, and I'm pleased with these numbers. Now we're going to go ahead and start preparing for the next year because we do need to keep investing in projects. So the second year, I'm not going to lie, the first one that caught my eye was the tween book series. I read Babysitter's Club as a girl, and I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. There were never toys available, but it helped me connect. So this one I was pretty biased against, and seeing the cost would only be $450,000 and that it was a low risk made me salivate over this immediately. So I'm definitely investing in that. East Coast Distribution Factory would cost more money than I actually have in my budget, so I couldn't even consider this. Even with saving up from the past year, there's nothing I could do to invest in that. Expansion of the mail order catalog. This goes a little bit against my principles of wanting to stay mostly in America, but we already have a facility in Asia and Europe. So this would just be opening up a mail order catalog so people could order more easily from those countries. And I do like that idea. So this one I think I'm going to go ahead and invest in as well. You'll see it's a low risk, and it also costs me very little. This combined with the last project is only $1 million, which I can afford. The facility consolidation is still up for grabs. That one doesn't have a lifetime on it, so that one I might choose to invest in this year because even though it would eat up a lot of my budget, it does save me money in the long run. Some of these projects, while available throughout the entire simulation, if you don't invest in early, there's no point in investing in it. The Grow With Me doll line. This one I had initially invested in back when I had an unlimited budget, and this one does not pay off very well at all. It fails for the first 2 years, and then it does make you some serious money, but if you don't invest in this first year, it's not worth it. And for the amount of money that's going to cost me and the fact that this is already a lower income year than what I had previously wanted, I'm not going to take that risk. Dolls of the World. This one is one that's a little tricky because it does fail for the first year, but after that it brings in massive profit as well as definitely expanding our licensing division. And I really like the idea of the concept because I actually have those Barbies of the world, and it's a pretty cute idea. I'm deciding whether or not to invest in that one right now. And the toddler doll accessory line. This one I hadn't previously invested in because of the high initial cost, but it might be worth investing in this year because I have a little more extra revenue to play with after budgeting carefully for last year. So we're going to go back to the income statement and balance sheets and plug in some numbers. I'm going to pick the projects I definitely want to work with right now, which include the expansion of the mail order catalog and my book series. And then from here, I've got $6.96 million to kind of play with and decide how I would like to invest. So I'm not going to do the Grow With Me doll line. I really like Dolls of the World, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with that one. And I'm going to go with the toddler doll accessory line. I'd like to use up as much of my budget as possible this year, but also I like the toddler doll accessory line, and then the Dolls of the World can appeal to the older girls. So we're doing 2 markets. Looking at the numbers, our earnings before income taxes are $21.9 million right now, and next year they don't stand a dip but only profit, which tells me that my other 2 projects are going to be paying off and that these new ones are not going to cost enough to make up for that payoff. My net income increases by over $4 million, which is absolutely fantastic. That's a 25% raise. Net current assets are going to jump up $7 million as previously predicted. So these aren't going to help my assets too much, but they are going to help my total assets because most of these are longer term payoffs, such as the book series. And I do like the way that those numbers are jumping from 1.8 million to 1.86 million. Current liabilities do go up higher than I had initially planned. They're over $2 million higher, but that's because we're producing more items as well, which is a good thing. We need to increase production. And the total liabilities has also jumped up total, which means I'm going to have some more long-term liabilities. Long-term would probably be that tween book series, but I'm not going to get rid of that one. It means too much to me. Cash flow statement says that I will be making quite a bit more money than I previously planned, $4 million more in 2011. I'll also be losing about $350,000 more than I had previously planned. But I feel that with the significant raise up here, counter offsets the somewhat of a loss right there. So I think that's going to be worth the risk. My cash flow from financing does also go down, which is not exactly what I wanted. But if I'm making less cash flow in financing, it means I'm making more in operations, which is a sign of a well-run company. So I'm willing to stick with that. And my ending cash balance increases by just under 100%, which is absolutely fantastic. Financial analysis tells me that our debt-free cash flow increases significantly in the next year, and it can increase quite a bit more from last year too because of our unexpected wealth projections. Now, we do have a higher discount factor. Again, I'm not allowed to play with that, so that I just have to observe. What I do looking at is the levered enterprise value, which shows that we're going to grow another 30 million in the next year. Now, over the next 5 years, if I don't invest in anything else, we're actually going to decrease in value, but luckily we plan on investing a lot. And now that I have a comparison, I'm going to check the historical financials, which tell me that in the past year we have increased in net sales by $7 million. Cost of goods sold has increased by $3 million, so there's a $4 million difference there, which is a profit, and we're good with that. Earnings before income taxes actually went down. That would be because of the investment decisions we made and the fact that they haven't all finished paying off. And our net income did go down. Now, I said 2010 was going to be a rough year, so we're actually going to have to wait until 2011 to see the major profit. On that note, it looks like I'm making about the right decisions since my assets are going up as well, and I feel comfortable selecting these next few decisions. So we'll go to decide. I'm going to go with the toddler doll accessory line because I would like to start out producing more things, the Dolls of the World because it's close to me along with the tween book series, and the expansion of the mail order catalog because we would like to start selling more in different countries. So we submit the decisions. Looks like in this next year, we did go up, but not by nearly as much as we did in the last year. Last year, we went up quite a bit more, by almost 60 million. This year, we only went up by about 40 million, which tells me that I probably shouldn't have produced as many items as I had and should have focused more on expansion products. Now, according to this, the toddler doll line expanded exactly as it was supposed to and performed fairly well. Dolls of the World is what cost me more of that income because it's not going to work until next year. I knew that going in, otherwise I would have said this is a poor investment decision, but it's going to pay off. The mail order catalog was 3 times higher than projected, but revenues were far higher. New ways to speed up penetration in Japan and China. And the tween book series was recommended by a talk show host and has boosted in growth way above expectations. So we would have done a lot better if I hadn't invested in Dolls of the World, but that's going to pay off huge next year, and I refuse to regret that decision. Now on the project details for this next year, there is a notice that I have an assembly line that needs reproduction. That one. Replace the assembly line at the Sacramento facility. Right now, that's a relatively low risk and low cost product. This product is not considered to be risky. It can be deferred for 1 year, but no longer without significant dislocation and additional expenditures, which means I'm going to have to do this at some point, and it's going to cost me money and not make me too much money. It's just going to be a fixer-upper. If I don't do it now, it's going to cost more in the future. So I will be investing in that one. I learned the hard way on my last simulation. The Grow With Me doll line is still available, and I'm still not going to go with it, partially because the cost is too much for this year, and also because I know it doesn't succeed. The Match My Doll clothing line. Now, this was a previous concept we had experimented with where kids could buy clothes that matched their doll and matched celebrities, matched almost anything. It did fantastically well last time, and now there's a chance to expand it. Given that this product was already successful and the IRR went from 18% to 26.72%, I'm pretty sure this one's going to have my vote. Now we have 2 acquisitions we need to look at. The acquisition of an electronic toy manufacturer and the acquisition of a children's magazine. Toy manufacturer is considered a high risk, and the total lifetime costs are going to be over $60 million. Now this will only cost me $6 million, so it will eat up a huge chunk of my business right now, but I'm pretty sure this one's going to be profitable in the end. Now, this one would be with Firefly products, where they'd be expanding our toy line and pushing a bit more product onto the market. I'd experimented with that one once before, and it does increase costs initially, but it pays off pretty well in the end. The one I think I'm going to go with this time is the acquisition of a children's magazine. This one is more about licensing. It does cost less over time. It does make us a little bit less money, but not significantly so. And it increases in a division that will steadily continue to increase throughout the entire simulation, which is what I planned to do from the beginning. I wanted to make more money in licensing, and now I can. This one involves acquiring the Morning Glory magazine, which has a pretty steady growth rate and a 9 to 14 demographic, which does appeal to my teenagers and slightly younger ones. Plus, it opens up the door for a new market, the in-between age of toddler and teenager. Might be a worthy investment. The IRR is quite a bit lower on this one, but our discount is higher, which I definitely appreciate, and the payback period is 2 years lower. So this is what I think I'm going to go with this time around. And the doll video game. This one's kind of nefarious because it seems like it's a beautiful risk on paper, medium risk, a huge internal rate, and a very low project cost. I can tell you from the beginning that this one does fail, so I'm not going to waste my time trying to play with it right now. Well, bless me. So based on the earlier decisions, we do have to do our replacement at the Sacramento facility. That one has to happen, so we're going to do it. The next one I would like to go with is the warehouse facility consolidation. Sorry, my camera died out there for a moment. And I also have to go with my acquisition of a children's magazine. Now, this year is not going to be much of a great year for production because I'm not actually producing anything, I'm just improving facilities. I feel like our company is outputting enough right now where we don't need to worry about that too much. Plus, it's eaten up most of my budget. So, looking at the numbers, earnings before income tax are actually going to increase at a far slower rate than they have been the past year and a half. And our net current assets only go up by $7 million as opposed to the $9 million of the previous year. However, our total net assets increase by little over $40 million, which is absolutely stunning. Total current liabilities only go up by $2 million, and our total liabilities for the next 4 years are going to go up quite significantly. Long-term risks, but I feel like those are going to drop once we actually do the expansion. According to the cash flow statement, our future projections are going to increase by about $3 million, which is less than I had previously wanted, but it's going to jump by $4 million and then $4 million the next 2 years, since I'm only going to 2014. Cash flow from investments has gone down significantly because we're only investing in this one big product and we're not actually doing too many retail items this year. I can't be too upset about that. And our ending cash balance is going up steadily. We started off at $6 million at the beginning, and next year we're going to be sitting at $8.64. I feel like that's steady enough where I can justify it. Now we're going to check the historical finances because I love the comparisons. You'll see that we went from having $13.45 million as a regular income in 2009, dropped down to $12.6 million in 2010 because of all our investments, and we've jumped up to $16.92 million currently because all those investments are finally paying off, which is fantastic. Net current assets have gone from $99.72 million to $110.41 million, a very generous increase. And so too have our total liabilities and shareholders' equity. Part of the equity is a good thing because it means we're getting investors, and we have increased our financing significantly, even if that's not exactly profitable and counts as a contra asset. Still, I think I'm about ready to go ahead and make my decisions. So the companies I would like to go with this time are the ones that pretty much maxed out my budget. I need to replace that equipment because it's going to cost me more next year, and that money I won't have. I need to do my facility consolidation because we are expanding to a new country with the choice to go to the Asian market last term. So this just makes sense because it'll help us ship things out faster. Plus, this does help out with the Match My Doll clothing line. And we're going to use the acquisition of the children's magazine rather than the electronic toy manufacturer because this one sounds like it's going to improve a division that I've been trying to improve from the first day. Now, I haven't actually taken a look at these numbers yet because I've more been scanning them as I make my decisions, but I feel like I should explain these. Net present value is what the company is worth right now. So this is worth $28.96 million, while the electronic toy manufacturer is worth $27 million. Part of the reason I decided to go with this is that it also has a better IRR long term. Profit index of 1.15 as opposed to 0.41, and the payback years are lower, sitting at 8.03 as opposed to 9.37. So all in all, these numbers are good. Higher, 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 and lower over the lifetime project cost, which is not exactly what I want. I'm sorry, lower over the lifetime project cost, which is exactly what I want. And the 5-year EBTA is $22.47 million as opposed to the $36.33 million, which means that over the next 5 years, it's not going to make me as much money as this one could have, but it expands a specific market that I think we need to. And that's why I made that decision. The replace assembly equipment was something that was required, hence why I made the decision. These weren't taken into consideration primarily because I'm focusing on current costs. And the consolidation long term is going to offer me a better payoff than any of the other projects, even if it does have a higher cost initially. And the EBTA is only going to be 3.75. It will help with future investment decisions. So we will submit. And look at that. We went up about $50 million this year. That's pretty good. Now, I'm hoping to hit $600 million before the end of the year, so we still got some decisions to make. Now, you'll notice this year that our actual revenue, operating income, and net income were higher than our forecast, which is always a good sign. We're still making the most cash flow for our licensing division, and it looks like retail is still ruling the revenue. Licensing is ruling the profit. And just barely, production is ruling the total assets. This is because we've opened more stores, and this is because we're producing more lines, which makes me pretty happy. And licensing is bringing in assets because we now have several expansions we're looking at. So the project details for this year. Looks like it's time to go ahead and invest in that Match My Doll expansion. I meant to do it last year, but I didn't have the budget to go with it. We're going to ignore the Grow With Me doll line. I don't feel like I need to explain that one again. The EDI software system. This looks like a low to medium risk, and it specs for electronic data interchange system for transmitting and sharing purchase orders. So this would help all of the companies combined actually order things, share things, and use distribution equally on a global scale. Since we are expanding our business, this seems like a smart decision because you can order from one store and get from a different store. Design your own doll. This one I made the mistake of investing in the first time. It's not exactly a guaranteed failure, but it takes so long to actually be successful that it's not quite worth it with such a high payback period of 9.86 years, and your profitability index is only 1.75. So the numbers say that this one is not the best high-risk decision I could have made, even if my IRR is 21%. I'd rather go with something with a 30% IRR if I'm going to have that little of a profit index. East Coast distribution facility. This one costs more than I have in my budget, and I can't even take a look at it, unfortunately. Inventory control system proposes to invest in an improved inventory control system to reduce inventory carrying costs and the number of back-ordered items. This would be more about guest satisfaction than anything else, and I feel like if we're expanding to a global market, we need to be as appealing as possible, especially with other doll companies out there. We make up 10% of the doll companies, but there's still 90% to compete with. So this one has a pretty low project cost, and I think it'll be worth the investment long term. Again, I'm only going till 2014, but it's still worth looking at. Expansion to England. This is one I picked because personally I would love to go to England. Now it says that our products are already available in Europe through other channels. This proposal will give the company its first brick and mortar presence in Europe. Now, one of the actual marketing strategies I'd come up with when I was first evaluating this company was the dedication that New Heritage Doll Company had to sticking to its principles. They want shopping to be about the experience more than about actually buying the doll. So that means that their stores are a huge part of actually going in, much like Build-A-Bear Workshop. You go in and there is a little tea shop. There's brick and mortar walls. You get to go in and pick out your doll, sit down, have lunch with them, buy their clothes, dress them, make their hair, everything. So even though you can buy the dolls in England and Asia right now, there's no actual stores. And that's a mistake because it's going against the New Heritage policy. So this one seems like a smart investment decision, especially with such a low project cost. It's just a building. Virtual doll community. This one's kind of a high risk, but just looking at the numbers, I'm drooling because look at that IRR. It's over 400%. Discount of 10%, but again, I have no control over that. A very low payback period, which we like, and a high profitability index of $306 million. This one I'm going to have to go with. I'd be foolish not to. The Bookstore Cafe and Writers Club looks like it's got an IRR of 48.9% and a high payback period of 4.4 years with a high profitability index. Now, if this had come up just a little bit earlier in the simulation, I would have gone crazy for this. Bookstore, cafe, and a writer's club. But because I've only got 1 or 2 years left of investing after this, I don't think I'm going to pick this project because it's not going to pay off in the long term, and I want to have a high ending number. The doll video game, we've skipped once before, and we're going to skip again this time because it does not succeed. And the Toddler's Music CD series. I've done simulations with and without this one, and it seems like overall it's a worthwhile decision. Payback period of 2 years means I'll start seeing profit immediately, and the IRR is over 100%, which makes it seem like a pretty obvious choice. It's considered medium risk because the profitability index is only 23, and it should be a lot higher if your IRR is going to be 104%. But we're willing to take that risk because that low project cost of $30 million, $300,000. I can't do math. So we go to the income statement and the balance sheets. Our net income, as you can see, is not going to increase much for the next year because of some of the investment decisions that we haven't chosen to make yet. But we're going to pick those right now. So we're going to go with the Match My Doll concept, the expansion. We need the expansion to England and the inventory control system. And virtual doll community, of course. And as for licensing, let's go ahead and do the Toddler Doll Music Series. Now, I do still have a generous bit of budget left, so I'm going to go over these once more and see if there's any more projects I'd like. None of them are within my budget, and I'm not doing the Bookstore Cafe and Writers Club because it's going to take so long for it to actually pay off. Now, taking a look at how the actual numbers have changed, you'll see how we jump down. The next year is going to be a bit of a low year. We're not making as much net income, And our earnings before income taxes did drop because we're investing in so many different things. Hands in a lot of baskets. But our total net assets are actually going to increase over 10 million. So we're not going to see that revenue immediately, but the next year we will definitely have a significant increase from 20 million to 26 million. Cash flow statement says that our cash flow is going to increase not very much in the next year, just under 0.5%, and then it's going to increase significantly the year after that. So again, this is a bit of a waiting game. 2014 is going to be a big year for us. Our ending cash balance goes from 9.35 to 9.98, which is a decent jump, I suppose, for 1 year. We'll look at the historical finances, just to take a look at how we've been doing so far, from 13 to 12 to 16 to 21, showing very good increase. Next year's going to be a bit of a blip on the radar. Our net total assets go from 210 to 173 to 187 to 233, which means we're higher than we ever were before, even if we've had a bit of a build-up period. And this also means that we have enough assets to actually play with, where I'm willing to take the risk on a couple of these companies. And the liabilities and shareholders' equity looks like we went from 210, 173, 187, 232. So that is still matching. Good thing to check once in a while. Financial analysis says that our debt-free cash flow has gone from negative 17 in the red, and it'll go up to 12.35 next year. So we're going to have some debt-free cash flow, unfortunately. Discount factor is still at 1.08. Our leveraged enterprise value is 4.42 million, so we should jump up a little bit next year, not as high as I would like. Over the next 5 years, we're going to lose a lot of money unless we start investing some more, which tells me that some of these decisions I've made, I'm going to have to back up with further decisions. I am going to go ahead and stick with these, and I'm still very reluctant to do the bookstore, cafe, and writers club, but I'll look at the numbers down here first. You see a new present value of 6.71 with an IRR of 48.9, profit index of 13% with 4 payback years. Lifetime project cost is pretty low. Meanwhile, you compare that to the virtual doll community. It just doesn't seem worth it. I'm afraid I'm not going to go with that this time around. So we submitted decisions. We had a pretty generous budget remaining. We're just under 500 million for our total profit. I don't think I'm going to hit my 600 million goal, but I think I came decently close right now. So we're going to look at the project updates this time, because a couple of these were risky. Initial revenues was twice as large as anticipated, so this was a good risk. The virtual doll community development costs were 3 times higher than budgeted. Revenues were significantly lower, but still profitable. That one I probably should have decided not to go with. Expansion to England were stronger than expected. New inventory associated a lot of savings. Software update led to capital savings. And the Match My Doll, of course, was successful because the last one was successful. So we are entering in the last year of being a CEO of this company, so it's time to get pretty serious about these numbers. I'm going to go to project details, balls to the wall. We're going to invest in everything that looks good. So go up to the Grow With Me doll line, which we are skipping. I refuse to do that. And the Design Your Own doll line, which are just not worth what you have to put into them. First thing that caught my eye was the cable TV program. Seems like a bit of a sellout, and it doesn't actually tell me the evaluation of the risk. But based on the payback period, which is just under 6 years, and my IRR of 33.65%, this would mostly be a benefit to the licensing division, which I'm okay with doing. So we're going to go ahead and invest in that one this time around. The doll video game is just, again, not very successful, but you'll notice the risk has changed from high to medium. My IRR went from 79% to 115%. Now, the payback period did go up a little bit from 1 year to just under 3. But I think with that kind of IRR, it's worth the risk. Plus, the project cost has decreased since we're nearing the end of the simulation. That one could be worth investing in. Coupon promotion. And this one's low risk. I can tell you from past experience that this one is just offered in a bad year because it always fails the first year. Or not fails, but it's not nearly as profitable as it looks like it's going to be, because these are some pretty good numbers, but you actually don't wind up making nearly as much money on this. However, overall, you do make money. Instead of making $10, you're making more like $3, but I think it's still a worthwhile campaign. Bookstore, cafe, and writers club might be worth investing in this time around. Project costs are still low, and my IRR did go up from 44% to 48%, so that one could be worth giving a try. My PI is still 13.42. East Coast distribution facility is still more than I can afford, but I might be willing to play around with it and try it this year because I know for a fact that this one is successful, and my discount rate did go up a little bit. Dollhouses with miniature dolls. This one is a high risk with an IRR of only 27%, but a pretty low payback period of only 7 years and a profitability index of 2.65, which is not the best numbers I've ever seen, but it's actually pretty good for this year since pickings are a little bit slim as we approach the end of the simulation. The accessories line is Aladdin Children accessories for the tween market, sunglasses, jewelry, and instant message. This one does not look like a smart investment at all. You'll see the risk is high, but your IRR is only sitting at 10%. Your profitability index is 19. So for every dollar I make, 19 cents, that would be mine. There's no point to me in investing in that because initially it's not going to pay off, and long term it's not going to pay off nearly as much as it should. It'd be what we classify as a workhorse item. Having evaluated those, I'm going to go straight to my income sheet and start plugging in the numbers. So I would like to do the children's accessory line and the miniature dolls. I think they're very cute. We're going to go with the coupon campaign. And we can still do the cable TV program. I'm not going to go with the bookstore, cafe, and writers club this time around either. It's still just not a good enough investment for the first year. More to the point, I don't believe I have the budget for it. If we try to click it, we get the nice red text. So, numbers having been plugged in, the first thing I want to look at is my historical finances to make sure I'm still on the right track. Now, I noticed that my net income went from 13 to 12 to 16 to 21 to 22, so not nearly as big of an increase as I would have liked, which is why I'm not willing to take the risk on that bookstore as much as I would love it. We look at our earning before interest and taxes, and we're sitting at 44 million, which is higher than we've been in a long time, almost double actually. Still doesn't give me enough revenue to play with where I'm willing to take that kind of risk. And my inventory has increased from 99.72 to 136.74 because I am producing more items than I ever have before. I'm willing to stick with that for now and produce 2 more items in addition to my cable TV series because I feel like that's a good benefit of advertising with toys so kids can be playing with the toys while watching the show, which is always a pretty fun connection. Cash flow says that I'm not going to increase too much this year, but in 2015 I'll be making bank again. Unfortunately, the simulation ends after these decisions. Cash flow does increase by a little over 3 million, which is excellent because the sign of good cash flow from operational profits is a sign of a well-run company. Investments is going to go up a small bit too, which doesn't surprise me because of that TV show. Cash flow from financing is going to go up a little bit too, so all across the board divisions are increasing, which is what we're looking for as a company. And our ending cash balance is going to go just up a little under 20%, which is not as much as I would have liked, but being that we've invested in more stuff that's going to pay off long term, demonstrated by these numbers, feels like it's a good decision. So the financial analysis, of course, debt-free cash flow has increased, which is always a good sign. I'm going to ignore the discount factor. Now, my projections for next year are going to be $522 million, and of course, long term is going to be very low if we don't invest in lots and lots of things. Having checked all of these, I'm going to go back to my dashboard one last time and see if my retail division has not grown as much as I would have liked, but my licensing division is still pulling in a good cash flow. Retail is back to ruling revenue, while licensing controls operational profit. And assets are split almost evenly between production and retail, which is about where our company should be. And of course, our actual and forecast show a good difference, with us only predicting to make so much money and actually making quite a bit more. Overall, I've been spending most of my budget and investing pretty well, not making bank on each product, but doing pretty well considering. So we're going to go ahead and make our decisions and go with all of the companies I've plugged in now. Here we go for the last time. And we did not hit 6 million like I would have liked. Well, shoot. But our company was definitely profitable. We grew by over 100% in the past 5 years, which is 20% per year, averaged out, of course. And considering New Heritage previously had just under 14% per year, that does show some improvement. Project updates tell me that the accessory line performs slightly well than budget. Miniature dolls had lower margins with higher production and marketing costs, so that wasn't the best decision. I probably should have looked more at the numbers. Coupon promotion was effective, but was not quite as income of revenue as we would have liked. Video game will underperform relative to expectations, but will contribute to margin. And the cable TV program, slightly higher than anticipated. Not my best decisions this year, and I probably should have looked at the numbers a little bit closer. We might have had a slightly higher ending number. Overall, I blame the budget. If I'd had more money to make the decisions I really wanted to make, I think I could have killed this. I'm going to go and take one more look at historical financials. You'll see that over the past 5 years as a company, we went from 12.99 million as net income to 26.56, meaning that we have doubled, more than doubled in this case. Our assets increased from 99 million to 146 million, going up nearly 50%. And our net total assets went from 220 million to 268 million, which is about a 40% increase. Not bad. Liabilities, of course, had to go up controversially, but the current liabilities did not go up by nearly as much of a percentage, only doubling. So I am very happy with that. There are no more project updates, unfortunately, because this is the year of my campaign. I'll go ahead and print out a copy of this to submit. And in the meantime, my name is still Grayson Jamrock, and I suppose I am signing off of this project. This was my simulation for the Harvard Business Managementor budgeting analysis. Didn't do as well as I would have liked, but did better than I've done in some previous runs. And I guess, as Markiplier would say, bye-bye.